Most speakers think they have a leads problem. They don't. They have a conversion problem, and they're avoiding the phone because of it. My guest today made over $1 million a year in sales before he was 30, lost it all to addiction, and rebuilt a six-figure speaking business from a $9 an hour job at a barbecue joint. He's going to tell you exactly what the reps look like and why money follows movement, not content. Welcome to Professional Speaking, the show for people who are serious about speaking and want to become known, booked, and paid. My name is John Ball, professional speaker, speaker business coach, stand-up comedian, and sci-fi nerd. I'm here as your guide on the journey to a successful speaking business.
Now, one of the reasons I'm particularly looking forward to speaking with you is because you help with one of the things that I think most speakers struggle with probably more than anything else. Like most people go, oh, the speaking thing can kind of do that. I've got that figured out. But what do you do about actually getting the bookings and sales to make sure that you're getting on the stages in the first place? And this is where someone like you comes in. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Well, I have been selling for 20 years and first started in life insurance. They said, bring 200 names to training and we're going to give you a script and you're going to call all your friends and family and you're going to sell them life insurance. And I'm like freaking out. So that was my through to the wolves. And so I said, well, I want to do this and I don't want to go work a normal hourly job. So I'm going to figure it out. And honestly, it's once you got over the call reluctancy, which is always the biggest, hurdle that people deal with, right? Which is still to this day, everybody dealing with, because we didn't have text messages much back then, email and those types. So like you literally you're calling people. And so I always been just understood the phone and the power of the phone. And so made millions of dollars before I was 30. I was making over $1 million a year selling life insurance. And I really sold life insurance to rich people, physicians, and thus I became rich. And then the world got a hold of me pretty good, John, and fell into first alcohol, and then it was drugs, and about 2.5 years of deep addiction from 35 to 38. I ended in an overdose, and I was in a coma 3 days. And I wasn't looking for God, but he got my attention. And thankfully I turned from that whole life. That was in 2020. And my wife at the time, she didn't leave me. She always knew if Ryan got out of this, he was going to be a motivational speaker.
Okay. She had that vision for you.
She was prophetic. Yeah. And so when I first came back out of my mess, I just started losing myself in the service of others. And I think that's a really important key. And I was just coaching a speaker this morning, and a lot of times we want to talk about ourselves, but it's not about us, right? It's about the audience. And if you can have a servant mindset about serving the audience any way you possibly can, I believe everything changes. And so I had to just get over my selfish self. And I joined the John Maxwell team, and I called myself a John Maxwell certified speaker. Ask me how many gigs I got from that, John.
How many did you get?
0. And I wasn't in the better, but I called myself a speaker and a coach. And I got my first job out of addiction, which was at a barbecue joint for $9 an hour. And so that was my first speaking job. But I had to work, and I had to humble myself. And then, I worked with people in addiction, and I was just trying to serve, trying to find, my walk. And then a professional speaker came into our small town in North Dakota, and he spoke at our ambulance banquet one year. And he was just talking about attitude and intentionality and time management. And I'm like, you can get paid to do this. And so I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, I want to do what you do. It gave him my John Maxwell certified card. I was so proud of it, right? And he said, well, call me Monday. And so that was my first coach that I hired really out of all of it. And since then, I've hired probably 4 or 5 other coaches, spent almost 6 figures on coaching the last 5 years. You and I, met through a coaching, program that we were both a part of and work for. And so I believe everybody needs a coach in life. I believe that a good coach can change your life. And so as I grew my speaking business and coaching business, and I just kept building it, I had a burden because I was making money. So my first year in speaking, I maybe made in 6 months, I maybe made like 40 grand. And then the next year I did 150. Year after that was 250. Last year we did like 360. And so I don't say that to brag, but I say because it's working, right? But I also have 7 kids to feed, so I have to go work. I got
So
like
you haven't got a lot of choice. You got to go out there and
I got
make the bacon.
they eat not only in the morning, but at noon and at night, and I just fed them. But so what I'm doing is working, but it didn't come over, it didn't come overnight. I had to find my voice. I really had to find my skill, based on my unique past and my unique skill set. I really, I tell people I'm a specialist in helping people to activate. And rather than commoditizing yourself and saying that you're a motivational speaker or inspirational speaker, I believe that's just the title behind it. But what problem in the world do you really solve, right? What problem in the world are you qualified to solve? And is it a problem you want to solve? Like, I come out of recovery, I could speak till I'm blue in the face at recovery facilities and make no money. I'm a man of faith. I could speak faith at churches and make no money. And so I had to figure out, like, how can I really take my voice and what's the problem in the world that I solve that would, pay me the most money for it, right? Essentially. And so over the last year, really honed in on the sales side of things. I don't, people kind of shy away from sales. It's not sales, it's serving, because if you're really serving people and you're a go-giver, you will have financial freedom, you will have time freedom, and more importantly, you'll have relationship freedom. And so for me, how I track that is through speaking, right? And so speaking to sell, the speaking is the tip of the spear. I speak at associations. That's number one, because they usually have money to pay me. And then getting into the corporate money obviously is good. But, the challenge with corporate sometimes is they will pay a lot of money, or they'll even pay you to come in and consult, but a lot of people, they don't want to be coached. They don't want to be consulted, right? And so I had to go through that walk as well. And so once again, finding your voice, but understanding that, write this down, anybody's listening, money follows movement. You have to move. You have to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to build relationships with event planners and decision makers. You're going to have to make phone calls. You're going to have to come up with a plan, because nobody's going to call you.
Yeah. This is, I think, recurring message on this show, but I think it's one that people can't hear enough, because you need to keep hearing it until you're doing it, frankly. And even then, we sometimes need to keep reminding ourselves, yeah, this is what it's all about. It's the business of speaking. As much as we might prefer that all we have to do is get up on the stage and the rest will take care of itself. It just doesn't work that way. And to be honest, that it shouldn't work that way either. It's like we do need to build something. We need to operate as a business. And one of the things that we connected a bit more deeply over was about how speakers generally don't treat speaking like a business in the first place. So I love what you're saying about the service mindset. I mean, yes, you will encounter speakers who are ego driven more than service, but I think for the most part, people in the speaking world are more service focused, and one of the things I love about the industry. But it
Me too.
It can't just be for free. It has to, as much as you might want to speak, as you say, you might want to speak to faith, you might want to speak to particularly that can't really afford to pay you. You have to make a business out of it, and so you have to make business decisions that go with that. It can't all be what you want. So with your business, yeah, you've clearly developed something, and I think a lot of people would be probably happy to hear your story as well. So I think, all right, you did it. I mean, yeah, you had some business success early on, but you didn't start like, oh, I've always been an amazing speaker. I've always been up on stage. I knew this is what I wanted to do forever, or all of that. It's like, this is like, all right, this was like a reinvention to some degree for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, my biggest gig still in my career, with which really full-time 4 years, my biggest gig is $7,000. And I got that last month, you know what I mean? And so, I I probably have a little imposter syndrome that, well, like, I can't ever get 10K or 12K, right? But that's what I thought when I first started. Like, I couldn't believe somebody gave me my first gig, I think was 500, and then it was 900, and then 1,200, and I kind of got stuck at like 3,500 for a while, but it was good money. And then I was like, okay, well, but if I can get a $3,500 gig or a $5,000 gig, but I can have an offer that I can make 5, 10, 15 on the back end. And so that is the whole thing. And I'll tell you the truth, I probably make the most money on free gigs as long as the right people are in the audience, networking business type of things, because they're going to be attracted, right, to go deeper. And I believe that most people are not going to hear my talk and just like totally transform everything in their life, right? They're not going to hit this podcast and like, oh, that was it. Totally transform. They need to be in a coaching program, right? Because I know how to lose weight. I know what to do. I know what to eat. I know how to work out if you put me in a gym, but I need a trainer. I need accountability. I need clarity, because when there's clarity, then I have confidence. And so, like, I think a lot of the biggest battle is people are like, well, I don't know who to call. Okay, well, let's come up with a list and a script and let's do it. But if if you're not putting those things together and bringing accountability, left to our own devices, we just won't do it. We won't do hard things.
So I think you're right that is one of the things, one of the stumbling blocks for people is, who do you call in the first place? Because I think, funny enough, I was chatting earlier today with a bureau, someone from a speaker bureau, about this very topic, that speakers will just join a speaker bureau and think, oh, the gigs are going to come flying through now, or they'll post stuff, a few bits and pieces on LinkedIn, or they'll be responding to other people's posts, the stuff that people tell you to do for engagement on LinkedIn. And that, why isn't my inbox blowing up? Why isn't my phone ringing? And I was like, because that's a super passive way of doing it. Like you said, people just don't want to get on the phone and make that call. So it's not just that. It's like, well, you have to know who you're going to call and you have to know what you're going to fix them. So the first bit of the equation is who. How do you recommend people start figuring that out?
Yeah. Well, you said a really key word there. Who? There's a book by Dan Sullivan, and I believe Dr. Ben Hardy wrote this book called Who, Not How. And so every time I've had a breakthrough in my life, it has come from a person. So I don't really have a money problem. We have a people problem. We need to find the people. The people have the money. And the good news is I'm associations and even conferences, they're looking for speakers. You might think there's a lot of speakers, but they're looking for speakers. They're looking for speakers that are different as well, and that are assertive and intentional about wanting to be on the stage and have high excitement and high energy. I mean, you say motivational speaker, I believe everybody needs to be motivated. Motivating just means move. Like, if you're not motivating, nobody wants to listen to you. You're not moving, and same with inspirational. It means to breathe life into. But I believe that we get so caught up in, I got to have this perfect demo and this website and all these things. No, you just need to speak directly to the problem. So every day you need to wake up and say, what problem are people dealing with? And what are they dealing with? I wake up and ask myself this. I'm like, they're dealing with anxiety, depression, fear, hopelessness, helplessness. They're stuck. They're complacent. So all of my messaging speaks to those problems. So then they're like, oh, we're dealing with that. Because when you see it, you're like, that's it. That's what we got going on.
Yeah. So you figure out that that's who you're serving. That's a really important part of the equation. But then how do you figure out who you need to speak to in order to serve those people?
Yeah. I believe you should always be prospecting. So right before this call, I had a power hour and I was prospecting. And so I'm figuring out what conferences, associations that I align the most with. I'm not only calling them, getting them on the phone, but I'm adding them to LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn outreach program as well, because when they come on LinkedIn, they need to see I'm a professional speaker. I want to build that Don't just send emails. They literally, I talk to event planners all the time. They say they get 50
Yeah.
emails a day.
I believe it.
So if you're sending email, but I can give you this LinkedIn, if you do it and you just promise in the message when you first connect with them, hey, I spoke over here, but I just wanted to say hello and connect with you. I promise I won't slap pitch you. And you just build a relationship, and then you post good content, right? That is relevant to problems that they're solving. I believe that's a great way to do it, but you need to get on the phone. And if you just get them on the phone to build a relationship, then you can do a combination of that. That's how I've built my speaking business.
Yeah. I was speaking with a UK speaker called Elliot Kay, and one of the things that Elliot was saying is like that a lot of the stuff that people put on LinkedIn, a lot of times speakers don't actually put much or content of their or pictures or videos of them actually speaking on platforms. And he said that the bookers are there on the platform, but very often they're not actually seeing you in action. And it is that proof
Yes.
of concept thing.
Social proof.
Right. Social proof, being able to see, well, not just that you can get on a stage perhaps, but also to be able to see content that shows you know what you're talking about. You actually sound like you have the stuff that can deliver on what we want to book you in for. I think I've had you say this before as well, that the bookers need to be able to trust that you can deliver.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it, it's not their money, right? Okay. So it's not their money. What's the big thing? Like, what's their big risk? Well, can I trust you to deliver and just really not mess it up? And are we, can I stay within budget? That's really all they care about. So if you build a relationship and they know, like, and trust you, they'll go to bat for you. But I will tell you this is a big tip, and this is where a direction we're going right now. Not only just working with event planners and decision makers, but you need to go and befriend the board members of associations, because the board members are the ones that will give some votes. And a lot of times I lose out with an event planner decision maker because the boardroom brought their guy.
Right. It makes sense. I mean, it is a relationship business, and people want the people that they trust to be able to deliver the outcomes they're looking for.
And usually those board members also are presidents or head up of corporations, which is really what you're going for anyway. We want to get to the corporate money. And so, but the nice thing about associations is that it's much easier to speak to, let's just say, a group of financial advisors that are all dealing with the same thing, or a group of mortgage brokers that are all doing. It's much easier for me to speak and build out a talk that is, they're all dealing with the same problem, rather than a Rotary group, which has like every type of occupation. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, here
I don't know the
like
word
Europe.
that I'm thinking, like specific niche, like a
Yeah.
group of similar, because then you could really hone in on a problem that they're really facing. You could smash it.
Yeah. Here in Europe, and especially in the UK, we don't really have the associations. Like the US is full of associations. Europe is not. That's not to say that there aren't any that exist, but they're not always, they're not quite the same path for people into professional speaking as they might be for people in the US. I mean, if that isn't a stepping stone for you, what would be your advice if you kind of have to go straight to the corporate? What would you do in that situation?
So literally what I did in the corporate world is I went door to door when I first started. So I would walk into car dealerships, and I would walk into real estate offices. I would walk into corporate, and especially if they had any type of a sales department, and I would ask them when their sales meetings were, because it's usually every week, and I would come in and speak for free, so that they could taste the ice cream and I could showcase in the corporate space. Right. And I will tell you that the boldness to walk in, right, and then to go speak, I got hired 8 times in 2 months from that. Now, the challenge is I ran out of car dealerships and real estate offices to call on. A lot of times we just have to be bold and allow them to see us in action. And there'll be some type of consulting coach, some type of opportunity there. Plus, they all have groups like the group that I know, like in the car dealership world, they have like what it's like study groups. They're called like Tony groups, and they meet every quarter, and that's an opportunity. Or you like Vistage groups. A lot of people are in those types of groups. So the successful
sure.
people are part of these that you can get referred to.
Yeah. And those can be good doorways. And like you were saying about doing like walking into places, and I could just hear the listener now going, I don't think I could do that. But I honestly think people could. It's just that they would prefer not to. Like you say, with
I wouldn't
they
have been
prefer
able to
not
do
be
it
at the
if I wouldn't have
calls.
had a coach that said, "You're doing it." And I never forget the first one I did. I'll never forget. And it was actually a mobile, like or not mobile RV park. It was an RV dealership. And I walked in and I said, "You don't have weekly meetings?" He said, "Yeah." And he actually said, "You know what? You're a performance coach. Would you coach my new guy here?" And I sat down and he said, "I'll pay you to coach him for an hour." So I sat down and I coached him for an hour. They never brought me in to speak because the executive said no, and they never paid me either. But it was a good experience. My first one, it wasn't a rejection. It was actually, and I'll never forget that. So it's always the first one's the hardest.
Yeah. But do you think that people do need to do the work on getting out of the way, or do you just think you just need the accountability? You
You
need
got to do
someone there to tell
reps,
you just go and do it.
reps. Yeah.
Reps. Yeah.
Yeah, because top performers have four things in common, John. Number one, they are remarkably bold, and people just need they need more boldness. Now, I can't be bold though if I don't have clarity and I don't have confidence and I don't have a roadmap. And if I trust that the person has done there before, like that, that gives me more boldness in what I'm doing. Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have confusion, which is randomness in motion. And then I'm like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be posting on LinkedIn. I should be posting it. Like, no, like you're throwing pebbles into the Atlantic Ocean. Need to have a clear plan of somebody who's been there before and done it,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. You don't
So,
have to reinvent anything in order to do this. But
yeah,
I agree. Like my first ever sales job, I had that fear of making the calls.
Gordon,
But no, I was being trained by Cole Gordon. You come across him and his team?
that sounds
No.
familiar.
Okay. So I was being so we bought training with them, and so his team were training me and the other team members. And it really was just like the probably the most helpful thing that came from that was that the only way to get over the hesitation on making the calls is to just start. Just start
Do it.
making the calls, because when you're in it, there's no hesitation. You're just in it, you get on with it. And that's really how you have to start your day. It's like, yeah, okay, I might not want to do with this, but you take the bitter pill and just get on
Yes.
with it, because that's the worst of it out of the way, is getting
Right.
started.
Yeah. And I will tell you, and this is something that I do in my coaching program, is we do like a sales scrimmage. And so it's an hour. We go into breakout groups, and it's 3 people in each room. And so I'll put 3 speakers in a room, 3 coaches in a room, whatever it is. And we will get reps. And so they got 3 minutes of phoning, approach, discovery, whatever it is, because you need to get those reps in. And you could do it with your ChatGPT. You could do it. You could go back and forth with AI and do role playing
Sure.
if you wanted to. But it just brings more confidence rather than making the mistake on the call and the phone out on the field and then, losing the opportunity. And so, but that's always been something that has been leveled up my skill set big time, is just got to get to the gym. I got to put in the reps.
Yeah, and it people think this is complicated, but I think maybe they want to think that because it gives them an excuse out.
100%.
Yeah, like you think, oh, the
It
gym's
is
going to
hard.
be too hard work.
John,
It is hard
it
work.
is hard.
Yeah, I agree.
But you and I saying it's hard is not going to make it any easier.
Right. But it's not hard is not the same as impossible. Hard is not the same as I can't do it. It's just like, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but it is doable. Like most things that are worth having, they're not going to be easy. If it was easy, would it even be worth having? So
Everybody do it.
yeah, you have to put in some effort and some work into it. I'm completely with you on that. But there's also an element where sometimes you just initially have to get out of your own way and just start doing it. And you kind of shared some of your story about doing that. Do you find it's the same principle for everyone else? You just like, you need to know why you're getting out of your own way in order to be able to do that for yourself. You need that, like, you have to have a big enough reason to actually push yourself to do
Yeah. I mean, I have 7 little reasons, that's for sure. And here's the challenge that, don't if they don't have the people that are back against the wall, I feel they respond the most, but not a lot of times they don't have any money to even invest in themselves. And I've been there too. And then, I'll have people that have made a bunch of money and then they want to come in and speak, but they don't want to put the work in to get like, they're not going to just get the 10K gigs. They're not even you know what I mean? But yet they made their money. And so, you just have to know, like, why am I doing this and where am I going? But you don't have to have it all figured out right away. You need to select a problem you solve, establish yourself as an authority. You can start writing a book, write a little book. Like I wrote a really little book, to start. But then you have to listen to the market, because the market will tell you if your message is hitting or not, if you're really speaking to problems.
Yeah.
And usually people are bringing they're bringing the solution, but they're not speaking to the pain.
Right. Yeah, I do sometimes come across, particularly with the place we both work for, would often very much come across people wanting to speak about what they wanted to deliver to people,
Yes.
but that wasn't really connected with what people would probably want from them.
And I've done it. I've done it.
Right, yeah. It's easy trap to fall into, because it's like you think, oh, this is what they need. This is what I love, and this is what everyone else needs. And it actually might not be, unless you can actually connect it in with, like you say, solving the problem for the right people and for people who are going to be able to pay you for it. Let me ask you this though. In your opinion, what do you think is the most important skill or trait or habit for a professional paid speaker?
You need to be a good listener, and you need to check your ego at the door.
And great. Yeah.
I have a speaker friend, and he said, Ryan, you need to be an askaholic. You really be curious. And I knew what he meant. And be really curious and be interested in really just bringing value and serving, some low hanging fruit tip for somebody. I just want to try to bring value. If you have venues that put on events in your area, just stop in or call them and get the event planner on the phone and just let them know that you're available. Because if a speaker backs out, you want to let them know that that's bringing a solution and not a solicitation. So building a relationship, and then what will usually happen is they'll bring you in the next year because you were solution based and you were available to serve. And even if they didn't, and so that could be a low hanging fruit for somebody. Honestly, I can't even tell you how many gigs I've won because the speaker backed out.
That's a good point, because I think people do, especially I know around UK and Europe, people do struggle to get it to break into the conference gigs because they don't really always want unknown speakers. But approaching it from that sense of like, well, I think in the situation where they don't have anyone else and they've got you on backup, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, they might not.
What's the best speaker? The one that shows up.
Yeah. 100%. Look,
and then the other thing too is that a lot of times they'll have breakouts at events,
of course,
and you could come in as a breakout. It might not pay any money or maybe a little money, but at least get your foot in the door.
Yeah, that's important. The visibility of being seen, being able to connect with people is important. I know we don't ideally want to be just doing gigs for exposure, but there are certain situations where I think one of my speaker coaches said this to me, is like, you don't ever speak for free. there has to be some exchange of value. You need to know you're getting something worth having from doing this. Even if it's not money, you're getting something that's
Yeah,
valuable
even if it's some
from that
purpose,
experience.
I call them purpose tokens,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I do like that. I want to ask you, because this is probably just more of a quick thing. If we can cover this quickly, I don't know, but selling from stage is quite a different thing. It's not something we cover too often on the show, but it's a different kind of speaking to what most people do. It's different, a bit different to keynote. Most people that I
Yeah.
don't know if I don't think I could sell from stage. There are definitely different skills involved with that. I was always thinking, yeah, I like the idea. I'd like to be able to sell my own courses, my own programs from the stage, but I don't have the confidence to do it. I don't know how to do that. What are some of the things that maybe they should look to work on that make that effective, make that work?
Question you want to always ask is, what action do you want the audience to take? So that's where I begin. Say, okay, what action do I want the audience to take, and who am I looking for? Right? Because I want to be very specific in who I'm looking for, so I can pre-frame and I can agitate and bother that person that is going to go deeper with me. And so I'm doing that all through my presentation of really just agitating, because if I'm agitated, now my pain of staying where I'm at is greater than the pain of change. And they will run up and almost tackle me after if I really hit home and I'm speaking exactly to the problem. And I do invite them to come deeper, so it's not necessarily a pitch from the stage, but where there's no invitation, John, there's no monetization. Okay.
Right.
So there's got to be some type of an offer to go deeper. And so when I say speak to sell, that's really what I mean. Because if you put me in a room with somebody for 45 or 50 minutes and they engage with me in a discovery call, I close at 80%. If I get a referral, I close at about 50%. If it's a LinkedIn lead, it's about 30%. So you can see the difference and how powerful it is to have more speaking gigs, much more efficient.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think an interesting point there that maybe isn't so explicit, but it is implicit in what you say of, you track this as well. Like, you track what's actually bringing in the results and the percent. Like, you know what converts best for you and what doesn't convert quite so well for you. And I think most people don't have much of a clue about that. But the tracking and the numbers side of this is part of having a business.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'll have some opportunities where I'll pay or buy tickets to be on the stage, especially if I know the other speakers, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to get a bunch of money from this because I know my offer and I know the people in the room that it speaks to. So I'll even not only not do it for free, but I'll pay to be on the stage. Now, be careful with that. You don't want to spend a bunch of money, but in certain situations, if you have confidence in that, and your ability to sell, it's profitable for sure.
It can be worth doing. It's been a lot of value in a short time. It's a very valuable conversation. I think people are taking away some, big notes and taking some stuff away from this. But I know that you have a program and you're launching a program, and that there are particular kinds of people that you're looking for to help at the moment. Who are the people that you're helping, and if they want to work with you, how would they go about getting in touch?
I'm very selective in the fact that coaching is 20 or 30% me, 70 to 80% them. And I don't ever want to coach anybody that doesn't want to be coached, or it's not a good fit, And so I feel that some of the best people are, they understand that I'm in it right now. Like I'm on the power hours with them. We do group power hours 4 days a week. And so like we get on, we're making the phone calls. We're like, I tell people, I said, listen, if you're not getting told no, we're not doing our job here. We need some no's to let, and so if you have that call reluctancy, if you have, a message that you think I can really get to the world, but I really just need some sales coaching, because you're not a speaker, you're not a coach, you're not a consultant, you're in sales. It's it. And sales could be like, oh, I don't want to be in sales, or maybe they think of the dirty car salesman or something like that. But at the end of the day, like, you're just serving. And if you align with those people and you discover the diagnosis of obstacles, outcomes, timing, budget, and decision maker, if you lock those in, people will move forward with you and you'll be able to make conversions. So people either have a leads problem, which there's not a leads problem because there's 8 billion people on this earth. So we have plenty of
Right.
leads, but
Yeah.
either they think they have a leads problem because they're not clear on their message, or they have a conversion problem because they're not diagnosing and their offer is not specific enough to the problem, or they have a service after the sale problem. And most people can service after the sale. They can deliver, they can do a good talk. So it's usually a conversion problem. And that's really where we attack the most. And so, I'm, I just want to help people. I'm growing my coaching business. So we're at about 35 clients right now. You and I both come from, a very scaled operation, right? It was
Right,
scaled.
yes.
And so I'm trying to, we're getting a lot of transformation. People are getting booked, they're getting paid, they're making conversions, they're leaving their jobs, right? They're making money, which is my biggest burden. Like, and so
course.
that's
Yeah.
what it's about, and not just here, send a bunch of emails out and throw it against the wall. It's like, no, we want to get in front of the right people and have engaging conversations. So yeah,
Getting people
that is
over
what
the
I'm
line
about.
is, getting
Yeah.
people over the line is one of the biggest challenges I know. So if people wanted to get in contact with you and find out how they could work with you or how you could help them
Yeah.
specifically with that, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably LinkedIn is the best. Ryan Botner, LinkedIn. We're pretty active on LinkedIn. I believe LinkedIn is a really good network. It's
Me too.
professional.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even name the other ones, but I really like LinkedIn, and I have a website as well, but everything's on LinkedIn. So we're just Ryan Botner on LinkedIn.
100%. We'll make sure that those links are in the show notes for people. But Ryan, thank you so much for coming and sharing some insights and speaking business wisdom with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
YouTube tells me that most of the people who watch this show are not subscribed to the channel. If that's you, please do subscribe to the show if you would like to be getting more content about becoming known, booked, and paid as a speaker. Now, in relation to today's chat with Ryan, if you've been hiding behind content instead of picking up the phone, you now know what Ryan would say about that, and I would agree with him too. It's time to take action, and money follows action. I'll be back next week with a solo episode, but very soon I'm going to be bringing you my interview with Owen Fitzpatrick. If you know who Owen is, you'll know that that's not one you'd want to miss. We had an amazing chat. I got to ask some interesting questions that I don't think he'd been asked before, certainly not on a podcast, and you are going to love the content that comes from that. So make sure you subscribe for that alone and more to follow. Lots of great chats coming up still. But in the meantime, go and do something worth speaking about. See you next time.